Yeah, I started.
Okay. Hey, I'm William, and
I'm Aaron. Yep.
and we're gonna be reading the article. Well, I think in the 25 minutes, maybe we'll get around halfway, or maybe more, maybe like 15 pages in. That's how far I estimate. And we're gonna annotate on the Google Doc.
Mm-hmm.
We'll highlight things that we find interesting, maybe like main points. We'll add comments in red. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Higher education. The customer is always right. You want to read the first paragraph?
Yeah, sure. Um, Higher education is supposed to cure us of the false belief that everyone is as smart as everyone else. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, the effect of widespread college attendance is just the opposite. A great number of people who have been in or near a college think of themselves as the educated peers of even the most accomplished scholars and experts. College is no longer a time devoted to learning and personal maturation. Instead, the stampede of young Americans into college and the consequent competition for their tuition dollars have produced a consumer oriented experience in which students learn, above all else, that the customer is always right.
Okay, so I think that's their main point, right?
Yeah.
With this part,
Mm-hmm. The last sentence.
which is pretty much there's only two sentences in this paragraph.
Yeah.
I think you're blocking me. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Um. All right. Before World War II, most people did not finish high school and few went to college. In this earlier time, admissions to top schools were dominated by privileged families, although sometimes young men and a very few women could scrape up the money for tuition or earn a scholarship. It was an exclusive experience often governed as much by social class as by merit. Still, college attendance was an indication of potential, and graduation was a mark of achievement. A university degree was rare, serving as one of the signposts dividing experts and knowers from the rest of society.
Hmm.
I think this part is evidence, right? It's saying before World War II,
Yeah.
and then it talks about like how many people didn't go to college.
Yeah.
And then it kind of analyzes the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You want to read the next part?
Sure. Today, attendance at post secondary institutions is a mass experience. As a result of this increased access to higher education, the word college itself is losing meaning, at least in terms of separating educated people from everyone else. College graduate today means a lot of things. Unfortunately, a person of demonstrated educational achievement is not always one of them.
Bashing colleges and universities is an American tradition, as is bashing the faculty, like me, who teach in them. Stereotypes abound, including the stuffy or radical or irrelevant professor in front of a collection of bored children who themselves came to campus for any number of activities except education. College boy was once a zinger aimed by older people at young men, with the clear implication that education was no substitute for maturity or wisdom.
I think it's talking about how college was not always and has for a long time been uh, just not viewed as an educational place.
Really? I think Well, yeah, I think it's saying that now like a college degree isn't worth as much as it was back then, right? Because
Yeah,
it's saying that before a college degree was rare and you could use it to tell like who was an expert and who wasn't. But
yeah,
they're saying that now basically anyone can get a college degree.
true. Yeah, I suppose it's talking about like the past few decades or so.
Yeah, I don't know if I entirely agree though. Like it's
Yeah,
still pretty hard to get a degree.
it is. Yeah, I think maybe he's biased towards like specific colleges.
Maybe.
You want to read the next part, or wait? Oh, okay, no. But this book isn't about why colleges are screwed up. I don't have enough pages for that. Rather, it is about why fewer people respect learning and expertise. And this chapter, in turn, is about how colleges and universities paradoxically became an important part of that problem.
I say this while remaining a defender of the American university system, including the much maligned liberal arts. I am personally a beneficiary of wider access to higher education in the 20th century and the social mobility it provided. The record of these institutions is unarguable. Universities in the United States are still the leading intellectual powerhouses in the world. I continue to have faith in the ability of America's post secondary schools to produce both knowledge and knowledgeable citizens.
I think this is just talking about the author's view on the subject.
Well, yeah, he's like kind of like clarifying his
His own
like
stance,
stance.
yeah.
Yeah,
Still, the fact of the matter is that many of those American higher educational institutions are failing to provide to their students the basic knowledge and skills that form expertise. More important, they are failing to provide the ability to recognize expertise and to engage productively with experts and other professionals in daily life. The most important of these intellectual capabilities, and the one most under attack in American universities, is critical thinking. The ability to examine new information and competing ideas dispassionately, logically, and without emotional or personal preconceptions.
this is because attendance at a post secondary institution no longer guarantees a college education. Instead, colleges and universities now provide a full service experience of going to college. These are not remotely the same thing, and students now graduate believing they know a lot more than they actually do. Today, when an expert says, "Well, I went to college," it's hard to blame the public for answering who hasn't. Americans with college degrees now broadly think of themselves as educated, when in reality, the best that many of them can say is that they've continued on in some kind of classroom setting after high school, with wildly varying results.
I think the past two chapters were just talking about his point, like his first point about um, the decreasing
That's
value
true.
of a college degree.
But I think one thing to consider is that he's saying that college degrees used to be rare and now they aren't, and that's true.
Yeah.
So he's saying that they're less valuable in that sense, but he didn't really prove that college education has gone down, like the quality of the education itself. More people are getting them, yeah, but are they really worse than the education was back then?
Yeah.
Like the classes? I don't know if that's true.
His evidence is just like a hypothetical conversation.
Yeah.
The influx of students into America's post secondary schools has driven an increasing commodification of education. Students at most schools today are treated as clients rather than students. Younger people barely out of high school are pandered to both materially and intellectually, reinforcing some of the worst tendencies in students who have not yet learned the self discipline that was once essential to the pursuit of higher education. Colleges now are marketed like multi year vacation packages rather than as a contract with an institution and its faculty for a course of educational study. This commodification of the college experience itself is as a product is not only destroying the value of college degrees, but is also undermining confidence among ordinary Americans that college means anything.
This is a deeper problem than the usual stunts, fads, and intellectual silliness on campuses that capture the public imagination from time to time. There will always be a certain amount of foolishness to a lot of campus life. As a Tufts University professor, Dan Dresner has written, "One of the purposes of college is to articulate stupid arguments in stupid ways and then learn, through interactions with fellow students and professors, exactly how stupid they are." College life, especially at the most elite schools, is insulated from society, and when young people and intellectuals are walled off from the real world, strange things can happen.
I don't know if I would exactly agree that they're walled off from the real world. Um, some of this is just so much expensive inanity, harmless in itself.
What?
Parents of
Oh, hold on, sorry. What is that? Do you know what that means? Inanity. I'm gonna search it up.
okay,
Inanity, a nonsensical remark or action.
yeah.
Okay.
Parents of students at Brown University, for example, are shelling out some serious money to their so their children can take part in things like Campus Nudity Week. One female Brown participant said in 2013 that the negative feedback about the event has helped prepare her for life after college. One can only hope. In the end, however, I'm not all that worried about naked students amok in the streets of Providence. Instead, my concerns about colleges and how they've accelerated the death of expertise rest more with what happens or isn't happening in the classroom.
At its best, college should aim to produce graduates with a reasonable background in a subject, a willingness to continue learning for the rest of their lives, and an ability to assume roles as capable citizens. Instead, for many people, college has become, in the words of a graduate of a well known party school in California, huh, those magical 7 years between high school and your first warehouse job. College is no longer a passage to educated maturity, and instead is only a delaying tactic against the onset of adulthood, in some cases, for the faculty as well as for the students. A well known party school in California. You see Santa Barbara?
Maybe.
What?
I have no clue. Part of the problem.
USC?
USC
Yeah.
is party college.
Yeah.
Okay. Part of the problem is that there are too many students, a fair number of whom simply don't belong in college. The new culture of education in the United States is that everyone should and must go to college. This cultural change is important to the death of expertise because as programs proliferate to meet demand, schools become diploma mills whose actual degrees are indicative less of education than of training. Two distinctly different concepts that are increasingly conflated in the public mind. In the worst cases, degrees affirm neither education nor training, but attendance. At the barest minimum, they certify only the timely payment of tuition.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know if there's a college which, if you just like pay, you can get your degree without actually going. Maybe.
I think maybe they're referring to
Maybe like an online college.
maybe or like you if you apply for a major that doesn't require a whole lot of work.
I mean, you can have a degree, but if you want to be like, well, let's just say in like your case, if you're really gonna be like an electrical engineer, even if you have the degree but you don't know how to do anything, you're still not gonna get a job. Like it's gonna be useless.
That's fair.
This is one of those things professors are not supposed to say in polite company, but it's true. Young people who might have done better in a trade sign up for college without a lot of thought given to how to graduate or what they'll do when it all ends. 4 years turns to 5, and increasingly 6 or more. A limited course of study eventually turns into repeated visits to an expensive educational buffet laden mostly with intellectual junk food, with very little adult supervision to ensure that the students choose nutrition over nonsense.
The most competitive and elite colleges and universities have fewer concerns in this regard, as they can pick and choose from applicants as they wish, and fill their incoming classes with generally excellent students. Their students will get a full education or close to it, and then usually go on to profitable employment. Other institutions, however, end up in a race to the bottom. All these children, after all, are going to college somewhere, and so schools that are otherwise indistinguishable on the level of intellectual quality compete to offer better pizza in the food court, plushier dorms, more activities besides the boring grind of actually going to class.
Not only are there too many students, there are too many professors. The very best national universities, the traditional sources of university faculty, are promiscuously pumping out PhDs at a rate far higher than any academic job market can possibly absorb. Lesser schools have no business offering advanced degrees, and many of which barely qualify as glorified high schools, even at the undergraduate level, offer doctorates of such low quality that they themselves would never hire their own graduates. Scads of unemployed PhDs toting mediocre dissertations in any number of overly esoteric subjects roam the academic landscape, literally willing to teach for food.
Even the term professor has been denatured by overuse. Once a rare title, American post-secondary institutions now use it at will. Anyone who teaches in anything above the level of a high school is now a professor. From the head of a top department at a major research university to a part-time instructor in a local community college. And just as every teacher is a professor, so too is every college now a university. A phenomenon that has reached ridiculous proportions. Tiny local schools that once catered to area residents have been reemerged as universities, as though they have, as though they now have a particle collider behind the cafeteria. I don't know. I don't. I think professor is just a title.
It sounds like he's like gatekeeping a little bit almost.
Yeah.
The emergence of these faux universities is in part of a response to an insatiable demand for degrees in a culture where everyone thinks they should go to college. This, in turn, has created a destructive spiral of credential inflation. Schools and colleges cause this degree inflation the same way governments cause monetary inflation, by printing more paper. A high school diploma was once the requirement for entering the trades or beginning a profession, but everyone has one of those now, including people who can't even read. Consequently, colleges serve to verify the completion of high school, and so a master's degree now fills the requirement once served by a bachelor's degree. Students are going broke running around in this educational hamster wheel without learning very much.
How to solve all this is a crucial question for the future of American education. In 2016, a Democratic Party presidential candidate, Senator Bernie Sanders, said that a college degree today is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago, and that therefore everyone should go to college just as everyone now attends high school. In reality, treating colleges as remedial high schools is a large part of how we got here in the first place. The larger point, however, is that the cumulative result of too many students, too many professors, too many universities, and too many degrees is that college attendance is no longer a guarantee that people know what they're talking about.
The failures of the modern university are fueling attacks on the very knowledgeable, on the very knowledge those some same institutions have worked for centuries to create and to teach to future generations. Intellectual discipline and maturation have fallen by the wayside. The transmission of important cultural learning, including everything from how to construct a logical argument to the foundational DNA of American civilization, is no longer the mission of the customer service university.
Welcome clients. College is supposed to be an uncomfortable experience. It is where a person leaves behind the the rote learning of childhood and accepts the anxiety, discomfort, and challenge of complexity that leads to the acquisition of deeper knowledge, hopefully for a lifetime. A college degree, whether in physics or philosophy, is supposed to be the mark of a truly educated person who not only has command of a particular subject, but also has a wider understanding of his or her own culture and history. It is not supposed to be easy.
I mean, has this guy seen CBB? It's not that comfortable.
Yeah. Also, I don't know. I feel like he described college and just said, I like. So he wants people to.
Yeah, well, why does
be
he say it's
educated.
supposed to be an uncomfortable experience? Like it doesn't like have to be, right? Like I don't necessarily think that like education inherently has to be uncomfortable.
Maybe he just maybe he
Like
had
it can be challenging, I would understand, but it doesn't have to be uncomfortable.
yeah. I think he's just
Or maybe that's a mischaracterization. Maybe he's just saying.
maybe he's
Yeah.
just sore about his own college experience.
This is no longer how college is viewed in modern America, either by the providers or by the consumers of higher education. College is a client centered experience caters to adolescents instead of escorting them away from adolescence. Rather than disabusing students of their intellectual solipsism, let me see what that means. Solipsism, the philosophical idea that one's mind is sure to exist.
Okay.
Wait, so what is he saying here? Rather than disabusing students of their intellectual solipsism, the modern university ends up reinforcing it. No, so it's saying that students think they're smarter than they actually are.
Oh.
Students can leave campus without fully accepting that they've met anyone more intelligent than they are, either among their peers or their teachers. This assumes they even bother to make any distinction between peers and teachers at all.
This is making some pretty wide generalizations.
They accept their degree as a receipt for spending several years around a lot of interesting people they and their families have paid for a service.
This
Really?
he's kind of overgeneralizing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is not to say that today's students are intellectually incompetent. Most of the young people at competitive schools have already mastered the rituals of test taking, recommendations, extracurricular activities, and other college bound merit badges. Unfortunately, once they defeat the admissions maze and arrive at college, they then spend the next 4 years being undereducated but overly praised. They might even suspect as such, and as a result, they risk developing a toxic combination of insecurity and arrogance that serves them poorly once they're beyond the embrace of their parents and the walls of their schools. Okay, I guess he's just saying that people get arrogant in college.
Yeah, and they're also insecure because they're not educated that well, and some of them know it. I think that's the point that he's saying.
No.
Meanwhile, at less competitive schools, students have far fewer worries during the application process. Hey, that's us. As the economic writer Ben Castleman pointed out in 2016, most college applicants never have to write a college entrance essay, pad a resume, or sweet talk a potential letter writer. Most college applicants never had to write a college entrance essay. I wrote so many of those things because
Yeah.
more than 3/4 of American undergraduates attend colleges that accept at least half their applicants. Only 4% attend elite schools that accept fewer than 10% of their applicants. Students at these less competitive institutions then struggle to finish, with only half completing a bachelor's degree within 6 years.
Many of these incoming students are not qualified to be in college and need significant remedial work. The colleges know it, but they accept students who are in over their heads, stick them in large but cost efficient introductory courses, and hope for the best. Why would schools do this and obviously violate what few admission standards they might still enforce? As James Pearson of the Manhattan Institute wrote in 2016, follow the money. The fact of the matter is that private colleges, at least those below the elite levels, are desperate for students and willing to accept deeply unqualified ones if it means more tuition dollars. Some finish, some don't, but for a few years, the institution gets paid either way, and somewhere a young person can say he or she has at least some college.
I think for private universities, a lot of the money also comes from alumni, right? So they want
Yeah.
to make like people into like really successful individuals, and then in the future they donate a lot of money back.
Yeah.
Even without these financial pressures, the stampede towards college by unprepared students is also due to a culture of affirmation and self actualization that forbids confronting children with failure. As Robert Hughes wrote in 1995, America is a culture in which children are coddled not to think they're dumb. A junior high school teacher in Maryland captured the essence of this problem 2 decades later in a 2014 article she published in the Washington Post after she decided to quit her profession. She said that her school administration gave her two instructions that to her were defining slogans for public education. One was that students were not allowed to fail. The other foreshadowed the client centered approach to college. If they have D's or F's, there is something you are not doing for them.
I've encountered this numerous I've encountered this myself numerous times. And not just among children or young college undergraduates. I have had graduate students tell me that if they did not get an A in my class, their lesser grade would be evidence of poor instruction on my part. I have also had students who have nearly failed my class and asked me for, and in some cases demand, a recommendation for a graduate program or a professional school. College students may not be dumber than they were 30 years ago, but their sense of entitlement and their unfounded self confidence have grown considerably. I think it's just whoever he's talking to.
Parenting obviously plays a major role here. Overprotective parents have become so intrusive that a former dean of first year students at Stanford wrote an entire book in which she said that this helicopter parenting was ruining a generation of children. These are the parents who defend and coddle their children even into high school and college, doing their homework for them. The Stanford dean politely calls this overhelping, and in general, participating in every aspect of their child's life. Some are worse than others. There are even parents now moving to the same town as their children's colleges to be near them while they attend school. This is not helicopter parenting, but more like close air support jet fighter parenting.
Um, Students are young and parents love their kids. Fair enough. But when the entire carnival of applications and admissions is over, The faculty have to teach students who have walked into their classrooms with expectations completely unrelated to the actual requirements of gaining a college education. Today, professors do not instruct their students. Instead, the students instruct their professors with an authority that comes naturally to them. A group of Yale students in 2016, for example, demanded that the English department abolish its major English poets course because it was too larded with white European males. We have spoken, they said in a petition. We are speaking, pay attention. As a professor at an elite school once told me, some days I feel less like a teacher and more like a clerk in an expensive boutique.
Well, to be fair, colleges have like historically been a place where people fight like the culture war. 'Cause the college students have like protested at colleges
That is fair.
since
Yeah.
forever. Why shouldn't he? These are children who have been taught to address adults by their first name since they were toddlers. Really?
What?
They have been given grades meant to raise their self-esteem rather than spur achievement. And they have matriculated after being allowed to peruse colleges as though they were inspecting a condo near a golf course. This stream of small but meaningful adult concessions to children and their self-esteem corrodes their ability to learn. And it inculcates. Wow, it's a lot of words I don't know. Inculcate.
Honestly, I think
Instill by persistent instruction. What was that?
inculcates a false sense of
A
achievement.
false sense of achievement and overconfidence in their own knowledge that lasts well into adulthood. Thank you.
I think I think he's overgeneralizing again. Like, I feel like this is just like a small niche of children. Like, who call? Wait,
it's like slightly bitter. I feel like
yeah.
it's not as easy as you describe it.
I don't know any children who call grown-ups by their first name.
I've
And
heard
I
of
don't
it
know any-
happening, but I still think it's like incredibly rare.
Yeah, and I didn't like. I don't know any children that inspect colleges like a condo near a golf course. But that could, I don't know. It just seems like a small niche.
If you walked around a college campus during finals week, you'd probably be struggling to find someone that's not stressed.
Yeah. When I first arrived at Dartmouth at the end of the 1980s, I was told a story about a well-known and at the time still living member of the faculty. Okay, that's a weird way to phrase it. That in a small way illustrates this problem and the challenge it presents to experts and educators. The renowned astrophysicist Robert Jastrow gave a lecture on President Ronald Reagan's plan to develop space-based missile defenses, which he strongly supported. An undergraduate challenged Jastrow during the question and answer period, and by all accounts, Jastrow was patient, but held to his belief that such a program was possible and necessary. The student, realizing that a scientist at a major university was not going to change his mind, after a few minutes of arguing with the sophomore, finally shrugged and gave up.
Well, the student says, your guess is as good as mine. Jastrow stopped the young man short. No, he said emphatically. My guesses are much, much better than yours. All right. Wow. We only got to page 8. So, about a third.
Wait, you stopped it?
No. We have to film a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
About a third, or a third of the text, and half of what we originally thought. Well, so some key points. What do you think you learned, Aaron, for this reading session?
I think I learned that. I feel like this provides a biased view of like college and the importance of college.
He is like, his perspective is from like a professor, so maybe in his mind, like, he thinks that the students have it really easy.
Yeah.
He's at Tufts University, right? I imagine Tufts University to be pretty challenging because it's a competitive school.
Mm-hmm. Tufts?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's tough.
All right. So, what is our plan for our next reading sessions to finish the text? Um.
Suppose we could read it.
Well, yeah. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. We just read.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.